A lot of people say they'd never buy a Dodge. Suit yourself. Behind me is the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack. 485 horsepower, 475 pound-feet of torque. Let's check it out. I love this car. I love the way it looks. It's a very 70s look. It reminds me of Float Like a Bottle, Sting Like an STD. It's a great car. Let's go inside. This car is fantastic. The interior is great. I love how the seats are slightly painful because pain lets you know you're alive. Inside I have some very interesting choices of buttons. I have a fan speed control and an auto control for the fan speed, but no other buttons to control the air conditioning with. They are all done here through this infotainment screen, which is Uconnect, and it's quite clever. I also have a sport button and a Super Track Pack button, which means I can change and calibrate launch control and some of the features of the vehicle, such as steering and a sport mode. And those aspects are real fun to play with when you have a nice day like today. Okay, I'm going to start it up now. Ready? Oh yeah. I also love how this car only costs $41,185 as tested. Oh, another thing to love also is the 15 mpgs city and 25 mpgs highway. You can't go wrong with that. Actually, because this has the automatic, you avoid gas guzzler tax. I've been told that if you get the manual, the MPGs are slightly lower, which means you have to pay gas guzzler, which I believe is over $1,000 these days. So it's a good thing to avoid if you can. Something else to consider here is this car is very large. It's more like a GT. It's definitely not a Camaro because there's more room in back. And there's a larger trunk, and the car overall is bigger, and well, it makes it a very interesting car to drive, and I love that. Let's go for a drive. Now, this V8 engine features MDS, which is a terminology for cylinder deactivation, and while there is cylinder deactivation, you can tell when it's running because there's a slight change in the pitch. There's a different hum as you're motoring along. And it's an entertaining hum because all you have to do is put your foot in a little bit and it deactivates the deactivation. And I love that. And driving along in normal mode, the car is very respectably drivable. It's not insane like some vehicles, Hellcat included. I can roll my toe into the throttle and it behaves and responds nicely. And if I really do want to punch it, it'll respond as well with that too. I'm losing my camera gear. Son of a bitch. Well, you know you're doing it right if your camera gear's flopping around on the passenger seat. Now, what I have found when driving this car is that it is very noisy in here. This is in normal mode, and this is cruising along at 55 miles an hour. There's a drone sound from the exhaust. It's sporty, but at the same time, it's fatigue-inducing. So I don't know how long of a trip I could endure in this car. Oh, MDS actually was active there for a moment. I'll try and point it out next time. I love the fact that I have push-button ignition, keyless entry, and a great big V8 engine for $41,000. I don't know where else you can go find that. Sure, there's the Dodge Charger, which is the four-door version, but when you're looking at a muscle car, nothing that's really sport-oriented like the Camaro or the Mustang, you want something large and muscly. This is a lot of muscle for the money. Now, the Uconnect infotainment system includes navigation, and it's only $1,000. Not even $1,000. It's like $895. Yeah, it's $795 for the Uconnect system. And the TorqueFlite automatic transmission, which is a ZF8 by the way, is a $1,400 option. So you either pay $1,400 for an automatic, or you get the manual, and then you pay $1,300, I think, for the gas guzzler tax. So it's the same price either way you go. I love how I can hit the Super Track Pack button and then configure launch control. I can activate launch mode. I can edit the RPM settings, which I believe would limit or restrict the RPMs at takeoff. And then I have a drive mode set up where I can change the engine and transmission setting and the paddle shifts and traction and steering. And the paddle shifts themselves, basically, the way the paddle shift works is the paddles are on or off. It's not like there's a different delay or a different response. What I really love, though, is that I live right near a toll road. A Texas toll road. Oh yeah. And that's one thing I really love about this car is the noise. You could totally reprimand somebody for doing something stupid like texting or using their phone while they're driving, like this, that way, because they're too... Anyway, you could certainly blow by them with some great exhaust noise and scare the... Something else that always happens in this car too, which I love, is other people want to taunt me into driving faster or, engage with them. And while I don't do that, it's certainly nice to know that they really don't know what they're going up against. And if I was that kind of guy, I certainly would take advantage of that. But see, you can tell the ride quality in here is a little shockingly bad because it's so bouncy. For a car this size, you'd think it would be much more controllable, but there's something about it. It has a straight line stability, but then you hit the slightest bump, like this one, and these seats, I think, make the ride worse. If they improve the quality of the seats, which I love, then perhaps this car would be even more drivable on a daily basis. But as far as I can tell right now, this vehicle is a great weekend car. It's a special event style car. It's your second car. There's no way I would commute in this thing. Mainly because, number one, it's too loud. I don't know if you can even hear me on this. I don't even know if people can hear me on my phone through the Bluetooth system. But basically, it's a lot of car for the money, but again, it's too much car for daily use. It really is. I mean, 485 horsepower is a lot to put down, and it's very tempting at times to just pass people and just hit ridiculous speeds, like the 80 mile an hour speed limit here, and then you're out of room again, like there's nowhere else to go. So that's kind of my problem with this car. It's not something you can drive daily because you can never really use it. But I love that, because that's an awesome car, a car that can be so scary and so vital to enjoyment that you only have to use it once a week or maybe even once a month to get the thrill. And I love that. Now, if I put it in sport mode with this button here, if I hit the sport button, it turns into more of a beast, and I can fine-tune everything I want. So traction control turns into a sport mode versus normal. I've been putting it in normal because I'm still not used to this car. It would take me about 8,000 miles with this car to really trust it. That's most V8s with over 400 horsepower because it's so easy to tear away. And I just don't want to experience that right now. Steering is on sport, paddles are on, and engine and transmission is in sport. What it does is it improves reaction time between the engine and the transmission and the throttle mapping. But it also makes it louder. It's just so loud in here. I mean, I have to go fast to make it quieter because at 80 miles an hour, this is about what it sounds like. But if I go lower, if I go down to 65, and this is where, see? There you go. It becomes very difficult to enjoy on a daily basis, and it's so loud, and it's so loud that my ears ring when that happens. Now, I think sport mode also deactivates cylinder deactivation because I have yet to hear it engage that mode, and you don't really feel it when it's engaged, you just definitely hear it. So I'm going to take it out of sport mode. So we're out of sport mode, and now I'm just going to cruise along here, just gently cruise, and we're going to see if I can find that sound. There it is. So it's a sound that's more of a low hum, and nothing really changes. I don't have an eco light on the dash. I don't have anything to tell me that it is active, but you can certainly hear it. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially when it's going to increase fuel efficiency. But at the same time, it induces rattles. So there's a rattle right now somewhere in the far right corner there, which I'm sure you can hear. And that only happens when it's in cylinder deactivation mode. So that should give you an example of the type of vibrations that come through here when that happens. Now, that's another thing I want to get to. The interior looks great. This car has 6,094 miles on it, and it still looks good in here. However, it doesn't sound great because there are a lot of rattles, especially when I crank up the tunes on this Alpine stereo. The problem with the Alpine stereo, which I love, is that it doesn't have a very good soundstage. The speakers are so far forward that there is no imaging. It's basically, there's no sound coming from the left, and there's a lot of sound coming from the right because that's what my ear's picking up. It's picking up the right A-pillar speaker. And the left A-pillar speaker is sort of in front of me. So there's no real good soundstage. So I think that upgrading a stereo in a car like this is a must, especially if you want kick-ass rockin' tunes. I don't know what music you listen to these days, but this system will only disappoint. It sounds good, and I love it, but it's not good enough. I have cruise control, which I never use in this car, and you can hear it now switching between the MDS cylinder deactivation and the normal use. It's just, that's how it is, and I love that. This one doesn't have a sunroof, but I believe you can get one. And this is the thing. This is the SRT engine in an RT Scat Pack. But this costs 10 grand less, theoretically, than an SRT, but it's the same engine as the SRT8. So this is the bargain deal here. I don't know why you'd spend 10 grand more on the same car, because to me it's like, what are you really getting for that 10 grand beyond 6-piston Brembo brakes rather than these 4? Or what are you getting besides, I don't know, cloth seats? You get leather. So there's all these little things that are improvements in the SRT, but at the same time, they're not really worth the $10,000 difference, are they? God, the way these people drive, they're such asshats in Austin. You leave any bit of a gap and just come on in, neighbor. Mainly it's because all these drivers are now from California. And They just don't know how to drive. I know that because I'm from California. Now, I do have a manual mode in here, so even though it's an automatic, I can manually control these gears with the paddles, or I can knock the shift lever into manual mode and knock back for up and then forward for down. So it's backwards from what I expect. It's forward to downshift, and I guess that means when you go forward, oh, I've downshifted, and then back, oh, I've upshifted. Who knows? But that brings me on one other point which I love, is that these headrests don't effectively provide any support. There's a good 4 fingers behind my head and the headrest, and it's the way this driving position is. I sit really high up. I sit on the seat, and I sit on the car. I'm not deep down low inside and in control. I just kind of feel like I'm riding on a big V8 engine, and I'm pointing at where I think I want it to go. And so that's what I love about this car. It's so crazy and ugly in a good way, I think, that it gets attention, maybe the wrong attention, but I do find that this is one of the exceptions to the rules where women like the way this car looks, and I can see that because it has great hips, it has a great look to it, but it's not necessarily appreciated by men. And that's what I love about big, fast V8 powered cars that almost appeal to women, because if I'm in that car, I don't give a crap about what guys think. I want to know that I'm getting her attention. And that's why I bought an SLK 55 AMG back in the day. It really works. And I'd rather have something like this than maybe a Mustang, in my opinion, because I really don't care about getting attention from guys. I want the attention from the women. That's just who I am. But I think that the Camaro as well has a much better interior than this car. And even though I drove a $41,000 Camaro with a 4-cylinder engine, I heard that you can get a V8 Camaro for something around $44,000. So even though it's $3,000 more than this car, I think the Camaro is a little bit more sophisticated in all ways. And if sophistication isn't for you, then I highly, highly suggest the Dodge Challenger, which I love, especially an RT Scat Pack. Now, of course, there are different Challengers out there. There are the V6 engine ones, there's the Hellcat one, and then, of course, there's the SRT. In addition to this RT, which is a toned-down SRT. Not toned-down power-wise, it's the same power, but toned-down options-wise. So essentially what you're looking at here is a bargain SRT, and you have that 10 grand to basically outfit what you want. Now, I've been very fortunate to have very warm weather here in Austin, Texas, because we're so far south in the country. It means that I get to enjoy, well, a 77-degree day on, today's December 13th. So it's Tuesday, it's 77 degrees out, it's 1:43 in the afternoon, and we're coming to a complete stop on Mopac Freeway. Almost a stop, 19 miles an hour. And so here's the thing, stop and go traffic in this car is okay because the brakes are regular brakes. They're slotted 4-piston Brembo brakes, and they bite very well in stop and go traffic. I don't need to go warm them up. I don't have to worry about losing traction because these 20-inch wheels are shod with great tires. They actually put up with the heavy braking very well, and they also put up with the crazy acceleration. Now, I wouldn't drive this car in temperatures below 47 degrees because it tends to break loose a lot. And that's typical for any car, really, with summer tires and this much power. So you really got to be considerate of where you live, is it a daily driver, and what you want to do with it. Because as far as the V8 goes, if I was to drive this daily, I think I would have to choose the 6-cylinder instead. It's a lot tamer, and I haven't driven it, but I just can tell you that this V8 is crazy powerful. And that's why it should really be considered for a second car or a weekend car, maybe just definitely not a daily driver. I really want to you can see I'm tense right now because I just want to open it up and blast by these people and just yell at them with the exhaust. And I love that. Now, if I put it back into drive mode, it's more of a droney sound, and I think the MDS kicks in again. Man, these brakes are awesome. No one is going to brake check this car. Not that I tailgate anyway. There's plenty of room in front for everyone else to move in. But then if they're moving in, you need the room, right? And then they take the room away when they move in, so you can brake hard. Okay, here we go. Coming to a complete stop at 145 on Mopac. Man. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little tour of the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack. I think you know why I love it and why you should love it too. So it's worth considering if you have 40 grand lying around, 41, what's the difference? And you want to have some fun, maybe just in the spring and summer, and you just want a temporary car to have. I wouldn't necessarily buy this to tune it. I wouldn't buy it to freak it out with, options and accessories. I would just buy it to liberate it. I love the color of this car. It's called Maximum Steel Metallic. Although I would probably call it something more like Nightcrawler Metallic, because it's this perfect color. It's not dreary and dreadful and depressing. It's got this flake to it that's really bright and vibrant, but at the same time it's a gun metal. It's a stark color. It's business-like. It means business. And you combine it with these wheels and you get perfection. I wouldn't even worry about stripes. I wouldn't worry about anything else. I wouldn't even tint the windows. It's just perfect. And I love that. This thing is fun to drive. I love that. There's also a feature in the navigation where you can tell it to notify you when you're going over the known speed limit. So it has a database of the roads and the speeds that are supposed to be on those roads, and you can set your threshold, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, whatever you want. And when you go over that threshold, it will warn you that you're going over the speed limit. It'll just say, hey, the speed limit here is whatever. And it's a built-in safety check, because you're going to need it, and I love that. Oh, look, a strip bar. Time for lunch. Well, there you go. I'm in love. And that's the thing about love. Sometimes it just stops.